Alright, now let's navigate through the loops and see how they work in action. And before that, let's draw a flowchart diagram to see how they work. And assume that we have loop statement, and it executes a condition. And this condition, if it's true, then it will execute a statement, and then it will, for example, increment, decrement the value of the variable, or just operate or perform a mathematical operation. Then compare it again to this condition and keep on doing that until it's false, it's no longer valid, and it will simply jump to the exit. It will exit the application. Okay, now let's see this concept in action. We have four main types of loops. The first one is the for loop. The second one is while loop. The third one is do while loop. And last but not least, for each. Okay, so let's begin by console.writeLine to just give them a title, and let's begin with for loop. Okay, and this is for. First, we declare a variable, we give it an initial value, then there's a condition, I less than 5, then I plus plus, which is equivalent to I equal I plus 1, and don't worry about them, I'm just going to explain them right now, just after we finish this sentence. So I plus plus is equivalent to I equal I plus 1, or you can type it as we learned before, I plus equal 1. For simplicity and shortcut, we just type I plus plus, they're all the same. And then console.writeLine, and then the iteration of I is, and then I. And if you want to type double quotations, for example, like this, the iteration of I, this will not work for you. And instead, you can just type in backslash and double quotation and backslash and double quotation, and this will print it out without the backslashes, like double quotation, I, double quotation. And now let's debug and run F5. And as you can see, this double quotation and 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, how this works is like the following. First, we declared a variable I, and we gave it an initial value of 0. Then we compared it if 0, the initial value, or the current value really, is less than 5, which is true. We jumped to this sentence and we executed this sentence, and in this case, because I was 0, then it executed 0. Now, in the second rotation, in the second iteration, we jump to this sentence, which is I plus plus. That means I equal I plus 1. And that made the value of I equals 1 in the memory. And then we compared it, I less than 5. The answer is true. We jump to this statement. We executed this statement, and here the execution in front of you. We kept on doing that until I is 4. 4 is less than 5, true. We executed this sentence. Then we jump to this statement, I plus plus, and we executed it, and that made the value of I 5. Now 5 less than 5, false. It exited out of the statement, or of the for loop. And in order for you to see the final result of I and to confirm it that it was really 5, we can just type in the last value of I is, and let's assume that we want to jump a line, like we want to type the value of I on the next line, then we just do \n. Okay, you don't have to write a whole console.writeLine again, and then I. And I'm just going to wrap this in curly brackets and type in the $sign in here. And as you can see now, we are seeing a compilation error of I, a syntax error, I'm sorry, of I, because I is not really declared outside the scope of for loop. So the only statement that can see this I is the for loop and what's inside of it. And in order for us to solve this, we need to move integer I outside of this and just declare it in here, and that will solve us the problem. Now I is seen throughout the whole program, and execute with debug, and the last value of I is 5. Notice how it jumped to the next line because I added the \n. Now to the next one, which is the while loop. And in the while loop, we just type it. Oh, first of all, let's give it a title. While loop. Okay. And let's declare a variable called count. Give it a value of 10. Okay, for example. And this is while count is more than 0. Console.writeLine the value of count is count. Okay, and now because while doesn't really hold any decrement or increment, so we'll just add the decrement in here, and this will work the opposite side as for loop, because this will decrement the value and ask again, and so on and so forth until it executes the full statement. Let's execute it now. See the result. As you can see, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5 until it reaches to 1. And since 1 is more than 0, then it will execute, and then the final value of count will be 0. And you can notice that if you add console.writeLine statement at the end of this line, count, and since count is declared outside the scope of while, so it's accessible for us, and as you can see, the last value of count is indeed 0. Okay, there's also do while, and do while works the opposite way as while. Let's just copy this one. Okay, and this is do while. Do while first executes, then compares. So we do, let's declare a variable, integer do count equals 1, for example, and then console.writeLine do count value is do count. Okay. All right, and then while do count is greater than 0, and of course we will be adding, let's see, do count multiplied by 2. That will work. That means do count equals do count multiplied by 2. So the first one will be 1, then 2, then 4, then 8, and then well, this one is greater than, less than, actually, let's see, this one should be less than 10. Okay, so the first one will be 1, then 2, because it will multiply it by 2. The third one will be 8, because 4 multiplied by 2 is 8, and then and then it will exit out the loop, and the final one will be 16. And we should also add this line. Do count. Do count. Okay, let's execute them. So 1, 2, 4, 8, then it really exited out of the while loop, do while, and the last do count was 16. All right. So the final one is really a special case because it only works with arrays and lists, in which we will explain later, of course, but I'll just give you a brief introduction. So first, let's add a title for each. Okay. And let's assume that we have a list of string and we have names equals new string, and then we have list of names like Alice, Bob, and Charlie. All right. And now, in order for us to iterate through this list, we need to add the for each. And for each has a simple execution, really. It's like you can add the for and it will work just fine, but for each is just a special case of loops that will work for lists and arrays and collections in general, really. And this for each has a string, and the name of this string is name, in names, which is this one, and that will create an instance of each name. So now if we typed in name, the name is name, it'll start typing in the names, Alice, Bob, Charlie. That's pretty much it. The next lecture, we will be going through a problem that we'll solve, and we'll use all the skills, and after that there's an assignment for you to solve and to submit.